News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Ed Kalegi. The U.S. presented allies with proposals to enable a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine, including an outline of terms to end the fighting and ease sanctions on Moscow in the event of a lasting ceasefire. President Trump signaled he could walk away from efforts to end the war in Ukraine if a deal can't be found soon.
If for some reason one of the two parties makes it very difficult, we're just going to say you're foolish, you're fools, you're horrible people, and we're going to just take a pass.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio suggested Friday on the tarmac before departing Paris for Washington that if it is not possible to bring about an end to the war in Ukraine in days, not weeks, it will shift focus to other priorities.
The president has spent 87 days at the highest level of his government repeatedly taking efforts to bring this war to an end. We are now reaching a point where we need to decide and determine whether this is even possible or not.
President Trump agreed with Secretary Rubio.
And Marco is right in saying it. We want to see it end. Think of it. Every day, a lot of people are being killed as we talk about, as they play games.
The proposal would effectively freeze the war, with Ukrainian territories now occupied by Russia remaining under Moscow's control. Kyiv's aspirations of joining NATO would be off the table. Donald Trump is studying whether he's able to fire Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. This from his top economist on Friday, a day after the president publicly criticized the head of the central bank for not moving fast enough to slash interest rates. Kevin Hassett suggested that the Fed under Powell, who was appointed by Trump during his first term, had acted politically to benefit Democrats.
Runaway spending from Joe Biden was textbook inflationary, and we didn't see anybody warning about that. And then they cut rates right ahead of an election. And so if you think that it's unacceptable for President Trump to be frustrated with the policy history of the Fed, then I think that you got some explaining to do.
On Thursday, Trump repeatedly aired his criticism of Powell and suggested he had the ability to remove the Fed chair while sidestepping questions on whether it was a path he would pursue. A federal judge who blocked President Trump's administration from dismantling the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau ruled Friday that the Bureau can't go forward immediately with plans to mass fire hundreds of employees. U.S. District Judge Amy Berman Jackson said she is deeply concerned that Trump administration officials are not complying with her earlier order that maintains the Bureau's existence until she rules on the merits of a lawsuit seeking to preserve it. The leader of Lebanon's militant Hezbollah group said Friday that its fighters will not disarm as long as Israeli troops remain in southern Lebanon, and the Israeli Air Force regularly violates Lebanese airspace. Naim Qassem addressed supporters in a speech broadcast on Hezbollah's television station. Qassem took over Hezbollah after Israeli airstrikes killed longtime leader Hassan Nasrallah, his successor and other top Hezbollah figures last year, decimating the group's leadership. Qassem and Hezbollah had implemented its commitments related to the U.S. brokered ceasefire that halted the fighting in Hezbollah's latest 14-month war with Israel. Capital One received approval from U.S. regulators to buy Discover Financial Services, a deal that creates the nation's biggest credit card issuer by loan volume. The Federal Reserve and the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, regulators responsible for approving the deal, announced their decisions in separate statements on Friday. Tariffs are giving secondhand shops a new lease on life. We get more on this from Bloomberg's Denise Pellegrini.
Things may be looking up for Goodwill, the Salvation Army, Facebook Marketplace, eBay, Poshmark, ThredUp, and others, thanks to President Trump's tariffs and tariff threats, because increases in tariffs on imported clothes give secondhand retailers here in the U.S. an edge, according to Dylan Carden, consumer analyst at William Blair.
Thrift is not up against the same issue, so they can hold their prices steady, and because of that, there would be a better value proposition, and because of that, you would think there'd be higher demand.
Higher demand on top of already increasing interest in used clothing, especially among younger generations online.
Kind of gamification, if you will, of thrift. And the stigma is gone.
ThredUp says consumers are worried tariffs will make clothes more expensive, and almost 60% plan to seek more affordable options. Poshmark says tariffs make secondhand an increasingly cost-effective resource for U.S. consumers. And Capital One says consumers who shop secondhand can save more than $1,700 a year. Denise Pellegrini, Bloomberg Radio.
Markets were closed for the Good Friday holiday. That's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Ed Kalegi. This is Bloomberg.